In a cold, lifeless corner of an animal shelter, a German shepherd named Max lay forgotten. Sick, alone, and on the verge of being put down. No one wanted him. But then, something unexpected happened. A little girl named Lily, just 2 years old, walked past the healthy puppies and stopped. Her tiny hand reached out to Max. Her eyes filled with tears for a dog no one else cared about. Max was broken. He was abandoned. But Lily saw something no one else could see. The chance for a second chance. What happened next will surprise you. This is the incredible story of how one child's compassion saved a life. Stick around to see how their bond changed everything. Don't forget to subscribe to Acts of Kindness Stories for more inspiring tales like this. Lily, a 2-year-old girl, didn't know how to explain what she was feeling when she saw Max, the German shepherd, in the shelter. But somehow, her little heart understood something no one else seemed to. Surrounded by healthy puppies with wagging tails and hopeful eyes, Max's cage sat in the far corner, ignored and overlooked. His fur was patchy, his body thin and frail, his breathing shallow. The shelter staff had already resigned themselves to the fact that Max, with his ongoing health issues, had no future. His time was running out. Clara, Lily's mom, had taken her daughter to the shelter as part of a small tradition. Every year on Michael's birthday, they visited to remember him. Michael, Clara's late husband, had always wanted a German shepherd, and though their life had taken a different course after his death, Clara kept the tradition alive. They weren't planning to adopt. They never had before. Their small house and tight budget left no room for a dog, especially one with medical needs. But today something was different. The shelter was quiet, the air thick with the smell of disinfectant and sadness. Clara had just gotten her coffee from the small diner where she worked. As they passed the reception desk, a volunteer named Brenda greeted them warmly, but Clara's mind was preoccupied. She couldn't ignore the pain that followed her every step since Michael's passing. His absence was heavy on her shoulders, on her heart, and Lily, her daughter, knew more than anyone how hard it had been. But today, instead of heading toward the lively, playful puppies that normally caught Lily's attention, Clara found her daughter pulling her toward the back of the shelter. Something was different in Lily's steps, something Clara had never seen before. The tiny girl led them past the playful, tumbling puppies and stopped right in front of a cage no one else seemed to notice. His body was frail, his coat a patchwork of dull, matted fur. His eyes were glazed over with infection, his tail limp. Clara's instinct was to pull Lily away, to move toward something more vibrant, something that didn't feel so painful. But Lily wasn't budging. She pointed to the dog with unwavering certainty. "This one," she said, her voice clear and firm, a sentence that came from a place Clara didn't understand. Clara knelt beside her daughter, trying to explain that this dog was sick, that there were healthier, happier dogs they could look at instead. But Lily wasn't listening. Her eyes met Max's, and something shifted. Clara could feel it. The deep connection that her daughter felt for this broken animal, this forgotten soul who was nearing the end of his time. The volunteer named Jason stepped up, clipboard in hand. His eyes softening when he saw the bond forming before him. "This is Max," he said gently, kneeling to their level. He wasn't just a shelter volunteer. Jason had seen his fair share of difficult stories, of animals passed over, ignored, or simply given up on. He knew Max's story all too well. "He's had a rough go of it," Jason said quietly. "Max has severe mange, an upper respiratory infection, malnutrition, and hip dysplasia. Without surgery, he won't be able to walk. We've tried everything, but no one wants to adopt him." Lily, with her tiny hand pressed against the chain-link fence, had heard enough. Max's sad, cloudy eyes looked directly into hers, and that was all it took. "Doggie's sick," she said softly, her hand still gently resting on the bars. The volunteer looked at Clara with understanding but also with hesitation. He knew what was coming, the inevitable question about adoption, the cost, the impossible decision. "Max is scheduled for evaluation tomorrow," Jason explained quietly. "If no one adopts him, he'll be put down." Clara's heart sank. The situation felt impossible. As much as she wished to help, there were practical realities she couldn't ignore. She worked long hours at the diner, barely getting by with her small paycheck. Her modest home was far from suitable for a dog with such complex medical needs. How could they possibly afford a sick dog, especially one whose bills would be far beyond their means? But Lily wasn't concerned with practicality. She wasn't thinking about medical bills or long hours. She was only thinking about Max, who was looking at her with a desperate understanding. Her blue eyes, wise beyond her years, held a depth that Clara knew she couldn't ignore. Lily, in her quiet wisdom, wasn't asking for permission. She was telling her mother what needed to be done. "Save one," she said simply, her voice carrying the weight of everything that needed to be done. Clara looked down at her daughter, her heart torn. She hadn't planned for this. She hadn't planned for Max to come home with them. But she could see in her daughter's eyes the conviction that there was no other choice. They could make 1,000 excuses, but Lily had made a decision, and somehow, Clara knew that this wasn't just about adopting a dog. It was about healing. For both of them. Clara looked at Jason, who had been watching them quietly, and asked, "What's involved in the adoption process?" Jason, surprised by the question, quickly ran through the usual steps. Forms, home visits, reference checks. But with Max, there was no time to waste. His medical needs were urgent, and the shelter was willing to expedite the process. "We'll do whatever we can to help," Jason assured her. The decision was made. Within hours, Brenda, the shelter director, was at Clara's modest home for the home inspection. The inspection went well, and while Clara felt a pang of guilt about how little they had to offer, she knew that Max had already become part of their family. The shelter waived the adoption fee and provided a starter kit with medications, special shampoos, and food for Max. It was a small act of kindness that Clara would be forever grateful for. Max came home that day, limping and fragile, his body so weak that he could barely lift himself onto the steps of their porch. Clara and Lily worked together, figuring out how to carry him inside. It wasn't easy, but as they settled him on a rug by the electric fireplace, Clara could feel something shifting. Max wasn't just a sick dog in need of help. He was a piece of their puzzle, a piece that had been missing for so long. The first few days were difficult. Max's condition worsened, and despite the medicine and care, he seemed to be barely holding on. But Lily never wavered. She would sit beside him, her small hand resting on his head, whispering softly to him as if she could ease his pain with her touch. And Max, in turn, began to show signs of progress. Slowly, his fur started to grow back, and his appetite returned. But even as Max grew stronger, there were moments when Clara's worries crept in. The surgery he needed was costly, and their budget was tight. Still, she couldn't bring herself to regret the decision. One day, after Max had started to show signs of real improvement, Clara sat beside him, her hand gently scratching behind his ears. "You're getting better, Max," she whispered, her heart full. She still had no idea how they would manage the cost of the surgery, but the look on Lily's face every time she saw Max wag his tail, every time she whispered to him that he was her special dog, kept Clara going. But the story wasn't over yet. Just when Clara thought they were beginning to get a handle on things, life threw another curveball. Emma, their neighbor and longtime friend, called one day to tell Clara that her daughter had suddenly developed a high fever. As Clara rushed home to tend to her sick child, she couldn't help but notice the deep connection between Emma and Max. Despite his pain, Max seemed to know exactly when Emma needed him. He had become her protector, her companion, her silent guardian. He wasn't just a dog, he was family. And as much as Clara had feared the unexpected challenges, she realized that this dog had given them more than just comfort. He had given them hope. As time passed, the town of Millfield began to take notice. Clara's fundraising efforts to cover Max's medical bills had drawn the attention of the local community, and donations began to pour in. The compassion that Clara and Lily had shown to Max had inspired others, and their once small, fragile family was now surrounded by support. But just when things seemed to be looking up, A call from the shelter's director threatened everything. The Preston family, a wealthy family from the next town over, had learned about Max and wanted to adopt him. They claimed they had the resources to provide for Max's medical needs, and they had connections that could ensure his well-being. But Clara knew deep down that Max wasn't just a dog to them. He was a part of their family. And no one, not even a wealthy family, could take him away. Clara's resolve was tested, but she refused to let go. Max belonged with them, and no one was going to take him from her daughter. And as she stood her ground, she knew that no matter what obstacles lay ahead, she and Lily would fight for the life they had built together. One that included Max, the dog who had been abandoned, forgotten, and left to die, but who had found a family that would love him until the very end. And Max, for his part, continued to prove his worth. He had saved Lily's life more than once, and he had become the glue that held their family together. He was no longer just a sick dog from the shelter. He was Max, the protector, the hero, the heart of their home. And together, they had all found something they never expected. Healing, hope, and the understanding that sometimes the most profound bonds are the ones formed when you least expect them. As the months went by, Max transformed right before their eyes. No longer the weak, sickly dog that had been left behind at the shelter. He was now a full-grown, strong German shepherd. His coat gleamed with health, and his once limp body was now agile, no longer hindered by the painful hips that once kept him immobile. He ran with Lily through their backyard, her laughter echoing in the air, while Max trotted by her side, his eyes bright and alert. He was more than just a dog. He had become a guardian, a protector, a family member. Lily's bond with Max had only deepened over time. As she grew, so did her connection with him. The bond they shared was beyond words. It was a silent understanding, a promise they had made to one another. Max had helped Lily in ways no one could have predicted. He had detected her medical condition before anyone knew it was even there. He had saved her from a seizure, sensing the changes in her body before they happened. It was as if Max knew that his mission in life wasn't just to be a pet, but to be Lily's protector. And in return, Lily had given him the love and care that had pulled him back from the brink of death. Through their journey together, Clara had learned what it meant to trust in the unexpected. Life had handed her more challenges than she could have ever imagined. Losing Michael, raising Lily on her own, working long hours just to make ends meet. All of it had left her feeling isolated, like she was carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders. But Max had changed that. He reminded Clara of the strength that could be found in the most unlikely of places. It wasn't about having everything perfect. It was about giving what you could, even when it felt like there was nothing left to give. Max's surgery was just the beginning. Thanks to the community's support and their unwavering love for him, Max had not only survived but thrived. The fundraiser Clara had set up had raised over $12,000, enough to cover his surgery and the follow-up care he needed. But more than that, it had sparked a ripple effect of kindness that reached far beyond their small town. Clara's story, their story, had touched people across the country. It had reminded everyone that even in the toughest of times, compassion could make a world of difference. As Clara looked out over her backyard, watching Lily and Max play together, she felt a profound sense of gratitude. Life had been hard, but it had also given her something incredible. A second chance. Not just for Max, but for their whole family. The love, the healing, and the hope that had blossomed from their shared struggles was a gift that would stay with them forever. And so, Clara, Lily, and Max had built a new life together, one filled with promise, love, and unexpected joy. It wasn't perfect, but it was theirs. If you found Max's story as inspiring as we did, please give this video a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Let's spread the word about the power of compassion, love, and second chances. And don't forget to leave a comment below. What was the moment that touched your heart the most? We'd love to hear from you. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to Acts of Kindness Stories. Help us reach our goal of 10,000 subscribers. Stay tuned for more heartwarming stories like this one, where acts of kindness change lives, one story at a time. Your support makes all the difference. Thank you for being a part of our community.